Which country, dear viewer, is the weakest link in Europe? Greece, with its annual debt reschedulings? Italy, with a banking crisis of massive proportions? Spain, with no government in 8 months? All problematic, yes, but I would argue that it is mighty Germany which is looking shaky. Its institutions have lost credibility, its economy is facing headwinds, and its people are angry. Let's take those in turn. Angela Merkel, having been in power for over a decade, certainly counts as an institution. Her approval ratings are at record lows, even as she mulls over running for a 4th term in elections next year. In the last few days, her party had its worst ever result, polling in 3rd place behind the AfD, Alternative for Deutschland. The AfD, with its anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim stance, is making huge strides on the back of the Chancellor's open-door policy on refugees. With well over 1 million of them in the country, public opinion is unhappy. Another institution, Deutsche Bank, poses the biggest risk to the global financial system among the largest banks, according to the IMF. And what about Volkswagen? The car company that stood for all we admired in German manufacturing turns out to have been faking emission results. That lack of trust also applies to the press. In fact, the Germans have coined a word for it, Lügenpresse, which stands for liar's press. On the economic front, Germany's obsession with achieving a balanced budget means its much vaunted infrastructure is suffering from chronic underinvestment. The German post-war consensus-driven approach is collapsing. For decades, German workers made sacrifices for the good of the country. Yet there's increasing inequality, the middle class is being squeezed, and automation is making inroads. Brexit, meanwhile, looks like hitting the country hard. Last year, Germany exported 89 billion worth of euros to the UK, which won't be easy following the collapse in sterling. Plus, there's a deep division between German business, which is looking for continued access to the UK, while German politicians need to make exiting the EU as difficult as possible to avoid other countries following suit. If internally there are problems, these are mirrored on the international stage. Germany is becoming ever more lonely. US Treasury Secretary Jack Lew recently stated that there was a consensus about putting growth ahead of austerity in the developed world. But in Germany, the so-called black zero, the phrase they use to describe a balanced budget, is sacred. Meanwhile, Southern Europeans say the euro is simply a devalued Deutschmark, of benefit to German exporters, but a disaster for them. Germans instead believe they're continually bailing out the South and do not understand the lack of gratefulness. To be clear, Germany is not going bust, but is facing a set of challenges that would test any country. The rest of Europe and the world depends on its finding a way forward. Thank you for viewing.